Welcome back to day two of the fifth Syndicate Competitive League. I am Xander Fina. Joining me here in the studio is SCL5, CCP Nullarbor, and CCP Paradox. We have just watched the Ronin be taken down by Dunktown Abbey in a result I don't think any of us were expecting, Alexiev.
Yeah, it certainly took me by surprise, and even during the match, obviously we're watching it as it goes on. It looked like Ronan had it in the bag at one point, and then I would describe it as a series of piloting errors, just snatched defeat from the jaws of victory there.
Paradox, what was the Paladin pilot there thinking right at the end when he micro jump dragged away from that EOS?
I'm not sure. It could have been, communication with his team. Maybe they just accepted it, but I really don't know what was going through his mind.
Okay, well, let's see if I can get this right this time round. The next fight we're expecting is the, let me double check. Yeah, it's the third round between Try the Verge and Footwork. That's the decider coming up before we get there. Nullarbor, we're seeing this huge push at the moment to make the esports aspect of EVE more prominent. Obviously, we're seeing the Syndicate Competitive League being very successful. We've seen the New Eden Open. The Alliance tournament seems to get bigger and bigger year after year, and there is this big push within CCP to make the esports aspects of EVE more interesting, dynamic, watchable. What's happening from the Dust perspective, if anything, in that regard?
Yeah, so we've actually run a couple of tournaments this year, but you may not have heard too much about them. We had just recently the Squad Cup, which was run by Logibro in our CSB office here. And we've been sort of experimenting with this and seeing what happens when we put competitive teams of different sizes in different arenas in Dust. One of the limitations we have at the moment is that we are not streaming these tournaments, and so they're not getting as much sort of esports publicity as you see with things like the SCL and the New Eden Open. But it's definitely on the radar. It's such an interesting environment. I think probably more so than EVE, Dust has the potential to be an extremely watchable esport. It's a little bit more grounded in sort of what's going on. EVE, you have to interpret a lot of what's happening during the match, and it relies on a lot of commentary. Whereas, I feel like Dust has the opportunity to become an extremely viable esport. We're also discussing ways that we could have that sort of esport sort of tournament system as part of the metagame in Dust as well. So having more player-run options open as well. It's stuff that we're discussing. It's not on the near-term radar, though.
Why aren't you streaming these events? Because it seems to me that'd be a great way to get more interest in Dust.
Honestly, it's the lack of tools. It took a long time for EVE to have some of the tools that have been developed for, showing the UI and all the camera controls and things like that. So on the PlayStation, we're sort of limited at the moment. We certainly have the ability to, but it obviously takes development time, and our main focus at the moment is to make sure that the game itself is really balanced and competitive before we start spending a lot of time invested in the showing it off. So it's sort of a priority call at that point, but it's definitely on our radar, and I think a natural evolution of Dust. We'll see more of that live esports streaming thing coming in.
Obviously, one of the things that people are most excited about Dust is this integration with the overall EVE universe. And kind of ancillary to my previous question then would be, would there be potential? Is it something you guys have talked about doing some kind of tournament that could integrate both Dust and EVE Online? Is that something that could be done? Is it something that's been discussed at a very high level as wishful thinking, or is that completely off the cards for the moment?
Well, it's actually something we have experimented with. At the last FanFest, we ran a combined EVE and Dust tournament, and that was pretty exciting. We used a new version of orbital strike mechanics, which allowed the EVE players to capture a beacon in space and then fire the orbital support down onto the Dust battle below. And it was extremely exciting. We had to teams of people with a mix of even dust players who'd never played the other game, and so didn't really know, necessarily what was going on in the other game. Yet they were on the same team, working together and shouting at each other across the room. So that was very exciting, and if we can bring that to Tranquility somehow, I think that would be super awesome. But like I said, the esports and tournament thing is sort of secondary to sort of solidifying the core gameplay at the moment.
Okay, well, the next match up is Try the Verge versus Footwork in their decider. Try the Verge lost the first one after some amazing Edge of Glory piloting from their Paladin Toon. However, they comfortably took down the second round after some fairly ropey target calling decisions from Footwork. We're now here for the decider. Try the Verge have banned the Ishtar and the Demos, and Footwork have banned the Slepny and the Astarte. What are our thoughts on this one, Alex?
Well, I think it's going to be an extremely different match from the last one with the Demos and the Astarte banned. However, with those things banned, you've also opened up the Eos and the Slefnir, two other popular command ship choices. I'm going to hope that the Paladin Edge of Glory incident was a bit of a fluke, and I'm going to have to go with Try the Verge to take this.
Have you been surprised that, Verge are obviously an entity that are well known within tournament circles. They're generally very well drilled pilots, and as a
Former
team
champions.
tend to perform, indeed, and as a team tend to perform exceptionally well. This hasn't been their strongest tournament so far, I think it would be fair to say. Obviously we're here in the winners bracket, and then they're doing very well, but there's been mistakes there. They've not been as dominant as I've seen them previously. Do you think that's fair, or am I being a little bit harsh on them here?
My interpretation would be that each of these teams is probably adjusting a little bit to the new metas that are going to be involved in the upcoming tournaments. So you're probably seeing a lot more experimentation from the established teams than you normally would see. And it quite possibly have resulted in them having less prep time with their final setups. So I don't think that, for instance, mistakes here in the SCL will necessarily carry into mistakes in future tournaments. And I think you're probably seeing some of them, like more serious teams, be a bit more playful than they normally would be in a tournament environment.
Okay. Paradox, do you think Footwork have got any chance in this one? Do you give them any possibility of pulling this one out the hat?
I think they've both had quite a journey to get here. I really want to go for Footwork. I think Try the Verge might have sort of ironed out their mistakes, but I think my heart is in Footwork.
Okay, well, let's get some other predictions. Paradox is going Footwork. Nullarbor, who have you got down for this one?
Verge had a really strong showing last match. I think they'll continue that and take this out.
Alexiev Karda, who have you got down for this one?
Try the Verge.
Yeah, I'm going to Try the Verge here as well. I don't see them failing here at all. I think their mistakes have been made, and I fully see them taking down this match 2-1. Before we cut for some music before the next round, I did want to point out we've discussed extensively the sponsors we have for this event in NSA Beavis. If you want to sponsor SCL, I mentioned also Egon Blackfire and his successful new addition to his family. But if it's something you want to get involved in, please jump on to Eve, give Egan Blackfire a mail, and we can discuss that with you. We're always looking for new sponsors. We're always looking to broaden the horizon of the tournament. So please hit us up, talk to us, and we'll be happy to discuss it with you. If I finish swallowing this frog, we're going to break here for a little bit of music. We're going to keep on going for a few minutes longer. The teams are still getting ready to get set up. Apologies. So we're just going to keep on going for a little bit longer. We'll go back to Paradox. There's no boy band music. Normally, I would cut it for some boy band music here if I was on Crossing Zebras, but I can't do that here. So we're gonna spend a little bit longer talking about Paradox. Paradox, was your only involvement with Rubicon purely the Siphon work, or is there anything else that the players might know about that you were involved in for that?
No, there was a couple of other things. Like Nullarbor has said, HiSec Pocos is something else that's coming out in Rubicon. That's my personal favorite. I'm really excited to see what will happen, especially on some factory planets. The next thing is maybe not all players are familiar with. We've just done it, which is the Tech 3 refitting in space.
Oh, okay, come on, let's give some more details on that. I'm not aware of all the information on this one, so break us down some information on that, Paradox, please.
Okay, so it's just as it sounds. It's the ability to refit all of your subsystems of a Tech 3 ship in space. So this will be for any fitting service. It'll be, from an Orca's fitting service or in a POS. Also, the new mobile home, mobile depot deployable. You'll be able to refit your subsystems through that as well.
And I'd imagine there are 1,000 wormhole pilots right now absolutely singing your praises for that move.
Yeah, this is something that we've wanted to do for a while. It's just trying to get the time to do it and the priority. And the CSM really helped us with this one to get it actually prioritized and fit it into our time for Rubicon.
So Nullarbor, here's an interesting question. We're kind of talking about different players and what kind of things they look for when a new expansion or a new point update comes out. And obviously a lot of that comes down to what that player enjoys doing in game. I mean, how much time do you yourself, Nullarbor, get to spend in game? And obviously you're in quite an interesting position where you're involved with Dust and Eve, so your play time's divided. I mean, how much time do you spend actually playing these games?
Yeah, and all the other games, like Minesweeper and Candy Crush or whatever.
Spider Solitaire.
Exactly. No, so
Eggle.
I've been e-player since 2006. I haven't played a lot of PvP since a lot of the rebalancing this year. It's something, Eve sort of comes and goes in waves, but in playing more Dust this year. But absolutely, you need to sort of stay in touch with what's going on in the game and try all the new features that your co-workers are working on. So we regularly, sometimes play together. We sometimes play as our dev characters, which is super fun when we have the dev roams. We've also started doing dev squads in Dust, where players, some of our staff are forming up squads and going shooting people in the face. So yeah, it's fun to sort of stay connected. Yeah.
Can I ask you both? I mean, it's something I've discussed with other CCP devs before when I've had them on Crossing Zebras to talk about them. And presumably you both have secret tunes within the game that aren't CCP tunes. I know that's something that's allowed as long as you keep it a secret. You both have characters, perhaps numerous tunes in the game, kind of in different places doing different things in game. Would that be correct, Paradox?
Yeah, I mean, several CCP are all over the place. You never know if you're playing with somebody or not. We try to, I think, it's a very strange culture in CCP. We are really enthusiastic about Eve, and you will see somebody playing Eve throughout your walk through the office.
Okay, so my next question then, obviously we've got Paradox, who's heavily involved with Eve, and we have Nullarbor, who's obviously heavily focused on well, the Dust Eve link, but with a firm eye on Dust itself. One of the things that excited me most about FanFest was Valkyrie. Now, I know neither of you are involved directly, but how excited is the company about Valkyrie as a product at the moment? How much work have you guys, if any, spent on it, or do you guys just get to play it as and when, or what's your involvement with that game at the moment?
Yeah, well, I hope everyone here has tried it. I tried it, and it's one of those things that I love seeing reviewers trying to put it down into words, like how they describe that experience. It's almost not possible, and we had that experience probably before every other, a lot of other people in the world. So we're quite fortunate that we got to try that early on. Yeah, there were playtests in the Reykjavik office, and it was an amazing experience. We got to provide some feedback to the early prototypes as well, but now most of that development is shifted to another studio. But yeah, it was really cool to see the beginnings of that, what basically started as a what we call a 20% time project. It was a research and development project by some of the staff here in Reykjavik who just decided that this was something that they wanted to try, and in such a short time it's turned into a massive success and a commercial project now. So that was very cool to see the inception of that.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm being shouted at my ear. We are ready for round 3, the final round between Try the Verge and Footwork. So we're going to pass over to our commentary team of Soldat and Ellender now.